Hello, and welcome to Unity of Fredericksburg. My name is Chris, and I'm pleased to welcome all of you to the Unity of Fredericksburg weekly online gathering. At Unity of Fredericksburg, we're advancing the movement of spiritual awakening and transformation through unity, a positive path for spiritual living. We thank those of you watching on YouTube, live or later, and we invite you to subscribe to our YouTube channel. If you're able to attend live, we encourage you to join us in the Zoom community room for the full Sunday morning experience. It includes music, prayer, and connection. Our weekly newsletter includes the Sunday service link, and you can subscribe to receive that on our website, uofva.org. For everyone local to Central Virginia, Unity of Fredericksburg offers a variety of fun and enriching in-person gatherings every month. Subscribe to our weekly newsletter at uofva.org for all the details. Our message today comes from our minister, Reverend Cheryl Fair. And now, here's Reverend Cheryl.
Thank you, Chris, and welcome, everyone who's in the Zoom room live with me right now, or if you're watching on YouTube, or if you're watching later. Your energy contributes to the joyful energy of this ministry, and I'm happy that you are here. So our broadcast date today is February 4th. And we are continuing with our annual theme of well-being, and the focus for well-being in February is social well-being. So my messages this month are going to be inspired by a book by Matt Kahn called All for Love. There it is. It's got a lot of glare on it. There you go. Maybe you can see the cover now. All for Love by Matt Kahn. And that's wonderful. I also want to mention that February is Heart Month. I'm wearing red in honor of Heart Month. So before we get started, I have a couple of riddles for you. Okay, you ready for some riddles? Here we go. Here's the first one. I can be given, I can be kept, I can break, yet I can be whole at the same time. What am I? A heart. One more. I can make people happy. I can make people cry. I can make people want me, and I can drive people crazy. What am I? Love. So it's all about love, right? All for love. So we're talking about social well-being and all for love. And let's face it, my friends, in this human life, we are meant to be in relationship with each other. Now, we might enjoy our time alone. We were talking earlier before the service about the joys of spending time on our own, but it's only in relationship that we can truly express what I think of as our common purpose, which is to express love. So the story and meaning of our lives is often told in the ways that we bump up against each other and care for each other and make mistakes and learn to do better. Here's a quote from a Presbyterian minister named Ian Cummins. Spiritually, we are not wired to feel hatred and mistrust toward each other. It is toxic to our souls. Beneath that anger is terrible loss. We want to be in relationship with each other. We were created for relationship. We need to recognize the sacred worth of one another, even when we disagree. Let me say that last sentence again. We need to recognize the sacred worth of one another, even when we disagree. So, recognizing the sacred worth of ourselves and each other goes beyond the dimensions of the human emotion of love. This is a function of how we use the power of love. So I'm referencing Unity's 12 powers when I say that. And Unity's 12 powers are innate capacities that we have to express the energy that we call God in our lives. And the power of love is a unifying and harmonizing power that reaches beyond the ways in which we disagree as humans and beyond the ways where we get into judging what's right and wrong, or liking or not liking, agreeing, disagreeing. It's well beyond that. And it recognizes the sacred worth of each and every one of us. So, one practice that we can use to enhance and amplify the power of love is called holding space. So, this book I'm going to be using this month, All for Love, the subtitle is The Transformative Power of Holding Space. So, let's start off by asking, what is holding space? So, definition from a website called holisticwellnesspractice.com says, simply put, holding space means showing up for someone, being fully present without judgment. Here's another definition from the author and teacher Helen Plett. Holding space means we are willing to walk alongside another person in whatever journey they're on without judging them, making them feel inadequate, trying to fix them, or trying to impact the outcome. So you might say to me, Reverend Cheryl, do I have to walk alongside everyone? Of course not. Of course not. We are not here to suggest that you engage with others where you feel unsafe, if you feel like someone's likely to cause you harm. What we are asking you to do is open your heart to the larger picture in which we're able to hold space for everyone and anyone on a spiritual level. So here's a quote from our author, Matt Kahn. The importance of space holding begins with an awareness that all human beings are on a journey of existential growth and emotional maturity, and that each moment places you in situations and circumstances that help you move from one level of consciousness to the next. So it's all about consciousness, folks. We started talking in January about the building blocks of well-being, and we talked about consciousness maintenance. So on Sunday morning, we're going to be all about how we work our consciousness when we are in the outer world working on our sense of well-being. So what we have to say here about holding space is how you show up matters. So showing up, I often talk about showing up as a spiritual practice. Now we're going to take that a step further and say how you show up matters. And it's not just how you show up in person, but how you show up in consciousness. All right, we talked about our consciousness last week. When we say that, we're talking about our thoughts, feelings, beliefs, and attitudes. How you show up matters. And if you can learn to use this tool of holding space rather than automatically allowing your human brain to shift into evaluating and judging and sorting, you can benefit your own growth in consciousness as well as the growth of others. And that's a win-win, right? Okay. So Matt Kahn guides us through these lessons around holding space by inspiring us to develop certain attributes. And we will look at 4 of these attributes today. So the first attribute that he asks us to consider is encouragement. So, and he talks about encouragement as a form of dynamic listening. So, being open to listening is that first level of holding space. Now, I hear some of you might already be saying, well, I've tried listening with that person and it just didn't work. We just got into another argument. So, it's important to say that listening, as our author talks about it, is not the same as being in agreement. So often when we disagree with someone, we automatically stop listening, right? They say something about whatever topic it is, and we automatically kind of shut down and stop listening. So, and one important thing that our author, Matt Kahn, has to say is the act of listening does not make you a part of someone else's narrative. So it doesn't, you're not giving anything away or saying, or indicating that you're in agreement by just listening to someone. So let me read a quote from the book for you here so we can get a good handle on this. And in this one, Matt Kahn is kind of telling a story about how he came to experience all of this. So he's talking from the first person. And he says, whether or not I approved of anyone's viewpoint, I discovered a second, deeper level of listening. Instead of judging other people's perspectives, I began to see how their experiences were mainly shaped by the unprocessed pain they carried within. So that's one of the things that we can do, particularly with people we don't agree with or that have viewpoints that or worldviews that are so different from ours. We just don't understand how people can be like that. Is, are you able to listen at a deeper level that can recognize that this person, just like us, has been through painful experiences that have kind of shaped their attitudes and their thoughts and beliefs and their consciousness. So when we listen, instead of forming an opinion about what people say, because our brains want to go right to having an opinion about it, right? We can feel into their words on a deeper level. And again, this doesn't mean you have to agree with them. It doesn't mean that you're losing any of your own, agency in the moment. But it does give you a level of seeing into what's behind what's going on. And in that way, it's this attribute of encouragement. You can allow a person to speak their truth and move along their spiritual journey, because we don't know about other people's spiritual journeys, right? And clearly, everyone that you encounter, every person you see on the news, every person you bump into here or there is on their journey, just like you're on your journey. So when you are listening, if you're truly willing to just listen, then you're practicing what Matt Kahn calls this attribute of encouragement. And it can be expressed. He gives kind of little suggested responses of how you can be present with someone, just holding space for them and listening. And he indicates that you could say something as simple as, I hear you. And if you want to feel generous, if you're feeling safe, then you could say, I would love to hear more about the events that led to your feelings. So as we encourage others in this way, encourage them to take the next step on their spiritual journey, we also allow space for ourselves to feel more encouraged, no matter where we are on our journey. So this is a version of a spiritual law that we hear expressed in lots of different ways. And so for today, I'll just kind of sum it up as, we understand that kind of the energy that we put out into the universe is what we also receive. So as we're willing to just hold space and listen and encourage by saying, I hear you, then we also are creating space for ourselves to be heard in challenging situations. And wouldn't you like to be heard, seen, and heard? So that first attribute is encouragement. The second attribute that Matt Kahn talks about in holding space, he calls validation. And he describes this as validation offers the gift of acceptance of someone's personal struggle. So let me read a little bit about that for you. All right. The attribute of validation. Validation offers the gift of acceptance of someone's personal struggle. While it can be easy to imagine how much better off someone might be if only they knew what you see so clearly from your vantage point, the deepest insights most often arise as a result of the validation you offer instead of the course corrections you might suggest. Whether with the best of intentions or from an agenda of trying to make someone more like you want them to be, any pattern of rescuing often leads to misunderstandings. So rather than moving into rescuing, fixing, making suggestions, correcting, offering things with your best intentions, validation allows you to see that in order to help someone truly heal, it's far more useful to demonstrate support rather than offering suggestions. So validation allows you to reply with something like, you have a right to be heard. And again, isn't that something that everyone would like to feel themselves? Don't you want to feel like you have a right to be heard? So you can validate another person, again, without agreeing with them, without giving any of your own agency away. You can affirm you have a right to be heard. So rather than evaluating and providing feedback, allowing others to speak gives them space to grow and process on their spiritual journey. And let's see, I've got another quote here. Through the laws of unity consciousness, the role you play in supporting someone's right to speak helps you to reclaim the power of your own voice that past events may have silenced. So again, it's this energy of how you show up matters, and your willingness to be present and encouraging with others by just allowing them the space to talk and validating that they have a right to be heard is also an energy that you will experience. When you're willing to go there, then you will experience that as well. So listening to others and providing validation helps us all along our spiritual path. All right. How are we doing? Take a breath. I need to take a breath. I'm going to take a sip of water here. All right. So encouragement and validation are things that we can do in direct interactions with others, or we can do it from afar. The next two attributes that we're talking about are more useful done from afar, done in consciousness. So not in direct interaction, because let's be honest, it's not safe for us to interact with some people, right? We understand that, particularly people you've had conflict with. It may be safer for you to be at a distance. You may have issues that you're trying to work through with someone who's already passed on to another phase of life. So these next two practices are things that we can do to hold space with people that we find challenging. And it's called the attribute of reverence. So when we practice reverence, we honor each person's right to face the intensity of their path in their way. And in unity and in prayer circles, we often call this holding the high watch. So, reverence is a practice that we can use to see the divine nature of all people, particularly those people that we find provoking. Holding the high watch, seeing their divine nature, seeing the pure expression of goodness that is them, that is beyond whatever it is that they are doing or have done in the outer world. So, reverence is what we can do in prayer to hold the high watch for people, and something that we can do again for someone who is not physically present with us for whatever reason. So we may not agree with them, we may not approve with what they've done, but we can hold the high watch for them as they travel on their spiritual journey, right? And wouldn't we like to have that for ourselves also? So here's our author talking about this a little bit. Here he says, you are always planting seeds in the quantum field. So again, that's about the energy that you express. You are planting seeds in the quantum field. Through the offering of reverence, you are filling up each person's energy field like an emotional bank account with the blessings they will receive at exactly the moment their heart is ready to open. So rather than being in frustration and stewing with ourselves about how could someone do that? How could they possibly act this way? Allowing yourself to step into your divine nature, holding space through this attribute of reverence, allows you to be present without taking any action, without fixing, evaluating. And it reminds us to focus on the elements of consciousness, on our thoughts about this person or situation, our feelings, see what's there and see what we can resolve so that we're not praying for them to change their outer behavior or their outer circumstances to change. Here's a quote from our author: no one actually needs different circumstances. They only need greater support for the experiences they are having. So that's one of the things when we talk about affirmative prayer and when we talk about working with our prayers and our consciousness, we don't talk about, oh, I want to change this thing to be, this time, this big, this fast. Those are all things in the outer world. What we do is focus on our divine nature and our consciousness. How do we want to feel? And how can we hold space for someone else? How would you like for them to feel? So if you're holding space with someone that you've experienced conflict with in the past, perhaps you can hold reverence for them. You can practice reverence by praying peace for them. So, because we want them to feel peaceful, right? So we've got one more attribute to talk about today, and I'm taking a bit of liberty with our author. He uses the word mercy. I find the word mercy to be a little prickly, and have dimensions that aren't really what we want to talk about today. So I'm going to use the word grace. So when we practice grace, we understand that all of us experience emotional triggers that are rooted in painful experiences. And practicing grace allows us to give the gift of being gentle with ourselves and with others. So even when others are acting out in ways that we find triggering, with grace, we can recognize that those actions that other people are doing very often don't have anything to do with us, right? It's their stuff on their path. And practicing grace means we can allow them space to be on their journey and not taking it on as if it has to do with us because we find it provoking. So when we practice grace, we can be gentle with ourselves, take a breath. When we lose our patience or lose our temper or lose our bearings, practicing grace with others can mean we can be gentle, but by not feeling the need to fire back with whatever they've done to us. So this would be, when Jesus talks about turning the other cheek, our human brain might want to fire right back with, well, you said, so I said. Holding space and allowing grace means you don't have to do that. You can just hold space, honor that they're on their path, and offer grace. So when we're offering grace to others, we open ourselves to receive grace, right? And, as you send out, so you will receive. So if you find yourself in a space to express grace and you have been able to listen, our author suggests you could say something like, based on what you have shared, I now see how you've been mistreated. So again, it's not giving anything away. It's not losing your own agency but you can affirm and reflect and say, I now see how you've been mistreated. So you've listened, you've validated they have a right to be heard. You can reflect and say, I see how you've been mistreated. And it's pretty profound stuff, this activity of holding space. We're going to continue looking at it this month with other attributes. And as we've said, it doesn't just have to do with how we are in direct interactions, but how we are holding others and circumstances in our consciousness. So as we come towards the end of this talk today, I want to remind us that in unity, all of our beliefs and our practices are based on this principle of the one presence and the one power. And from that perspective, you can see the importance of holding space. If we recognize that all people are expressions of the one presence and the one power, just like we are, then we can encourage ourselves to pivot our consciousness and pivot to our divine nature. So here's a quote from the CSL minister, Scott Aubrey. Our highest calling is to open to the goodness, grace, and beauty of each other and of ourselves. So as you go through your week, I'd like for you to think about these attributes of encouragement, validation, reverence, and grace as we look at this topic of well-being. And to prepare for our time of meditation, I have one more quote for you, and this is from Ernest Holmes. The unity of good is a revelation of the greatest importance, for it teaches us that we are one with the whole and with each other. So take a deep breath, my friends. And as we move into our time of meditation, I'm going to read for you a version of the Lord's Prayer. This is a version written in 1892 that was drawn from the original language that Jesus spoke this prayer pattern in, which was Aramaic. So this is a translation from the Aramaic. So take a deep breath. And if you wish, you can allow your outer eyes to drift closed, and let's listen to the words of this ancient prayer. And we will, once I finish that, we'll move right into our time of silence. O cosmic birther of all radiance and vibration, Soften the ground of our being and carve out a space within us where your presence can abide. Fill us with your creativity so that we may be empowered to bear the fruit of your mission. Let each of our actions bear fruit in accordance with our desire. Endow us with the wisdom to produce and share what each being needs to grow and flourish. Untie the tangled threads of destiny that bind us as we release others from the entanglement of past mistakes. Do not let us be seduced by that which would divert us from our true purpose, but illuminate the opportunities of the present moment. For you are the ground and the fruitful vision, the birth, power, and fulfillment as all is gathered and made whole again. And so it is. And now we will move into the silence together. And as we begin to bring our awareness back to the current moment, back to the seat that you're in, the room that you're in, I'll offer another adaptation of a traditional prayer. This is the prayer that's known as the Serenity Prayer. And this updated version says, and I'd suggest that you put your hand on your heart as we listen to this. I am serenity that accepts things that I cannot change. I am courage that changes the things I can. And I am wisdom that knows the difference. I'll say that one more time. I am serenity that accepts the things I cannot change. I am courage that changes the things I can. And I am wisdom that knows the difference. So as we conclude our time of meditation, I'll offer you an affirmation that you can say after me at home. Here it is. I practice well-being by holding the high watch, and I am grateful. So say it with me. I practice well-being by holding the high watch, and I am grateful. Let's say it one more time. I practice well-being by holding the high watch, and I am grateful. So I am, my friends, and I see you holding the high watch and holding space with ease and with grace. So that's it for me. I'm going to hand it back to our friend Chris, our service leader today, to wrap up this portion of our service.
That was wonderful. So thanks to everybody for watching our weekly broadcast from Unity of Fredericksburg. Visit our website, uofva.org, to learn more about our mission of spiritual awakening and transformation. You can support our ministry with your financial donation. Thanks again for watching and see you next